Stop doing that.
Stop yelling, oh no.
Every time he gets like around my equipment, and he's like, oh no.
Welcome, feathered friends and bird nerds, to Raptor Radio, the podcast soaring high above the rest. Get ready to sink your talons into all things American Eagle Foundation and all things Raptor. From majestic eagles to charismatic corvids, we'll be providing you with updates from our roost while educating about the wide, wild world of raptors. The sky's the limit for our host's passion for magnificent birds of prey. Leading us in this endeavor are your hosts, Dr. Robin Miller and Crystal Slusher.
Welcome, amazing ISs, to another edition of Raptor Radio. Joining with me today is Dr. Robin Miller and Ronnie Cowan from UT Extension.
Ronnie, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and your role with UT Extension in Blount County?
Absolutely. My name is Ronnie Cowan, and I'm with the University of Tennessee in Blount County, and I am an adult agriculture agent, and I specialize in horticulture and natural resources. I'm a certified wildlife biologist through the Wildlife Society, and I do a little bit of 4-H youth development.
That's quite a repertoire there. So we have listeners all over the country and some international listeners as well. So could you tell us a little bit about what the UT Extension is?
Yeah. So the University of Tennessee Extension is housed by the land grant university in this state. So in America, every state has a land grant university. So back in the 1800s, the federal government gave land to particular colleges for them to teach agriculture and military science. So today, each state has a land grant university. Here it's the University of Tennessee. In Alabama, it's Auburn. So there's one in each state. But our mission is to bridge the information from the university back to the citizens of the county. So we deal with agriculture, natural resources, family consumer science. Some folks may remember home economics. It's now family consumer science, and youth development. And youth development is 4-H. So that's the largest youth organization in the world with 6 million strong. And they deal with life skills, team building skills, and we have a plethora of activities to build those skills in our youth.
Yeah, one thing that's always impressed me about the UT Extension is just the variety of resources that they provide to the community. I believe the slogan is like real life solutions, and the UT Extension really embodies that.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we do a lot of different things for different folks. We're very diverse, and we provide research-based information, so real life solutions, and we deal with agriculture, whether it be traditional farming, row crop, livestock, to horticulture if you have lawn and garden questions, if you're growing crops. Where I come in natural resources is I help landowners manage their land, whether it be forestry or wildlife management, working with people who like to recreate in the outdoors, hunting, fishing, or just bird watchers, for example, would be a great connection for us. And we help manage that landscape to make the habitat for their objectives. So if they want to see more bobwhite quail on their property, or if they want to listen to songbirds and migratory birds, we can help get them information to make their land more suitable for those wildlife species.
And that is so cool. There's a lot of connective tissue between our two organizations.
Yeah.
American Eagle Foundation has our mission pillars of conserve, educate, and protect. And it sounds like the UT Extension embodies that in a lot of ways. Can you talk to me a little bit more about your role in wildlife management and how that is involved in conservation?
Absolutely. So wildlife management, I have a degree in wildlife and fishery science, so I utilize my degree and I meet with landowners, and first and foremost, we find out what their objectives are. So if they own, whether it be 5 acres or 150 acres, and I even work with some folks that own large tracts of land. We're currently working with someone that owns 1,800 acres, but what their objectives are. If they're wanting to hunt their property, we look at what game species they're after. If they're after white-tailed deer or a wild turkey, a bobwhite quail, or if they're just wanting viewing pleasure, if they wish to have more songbirds, we look at the landscape And a lot of times it's controlling non-native invasive vegetation, stuff that has gotten us in trouble over the years, bringing things where they don't belong. And so we have to control that, and we have several methods of doing so. There's no substitute for good hands. So going out in the field, working, providing hands-on education. So we make recommendations on how to manage their land, and a lot of times that's vegetation control. A lot of people that get in this career like to work with wildlife, and they have a particular favorite species to work with, but the majority of wildlife management is working with people, finding out what they like and getting them to understand what that particular wildlife species means. And what's great to see is, you have this canvas of a landscape, so it's really an art and a science. So putting together those practices, controlling those vegetative communities. So our number one bird, and I know this is, y'all love birds. So our number one bird that, I work with is quail. A lot of people wish to have quail back. It was a big pastime and heritage to recreate for quail. And if I had to write a plan on how to eradicate or how to get rid of quail, we've pretty much done it, unfortunately, with a lot of non-native cool season grasses, a lot of forest. Quail are not a forest species, so trying to get that correct vegetation type and that succession where those plants grow, converting that back into shrubs and native grasses. We use prescribed fires to burn the landscape, even doing certain plantings if necessary. But and each stage is different. So if I'm out on a 300-acre farm that is grown up in a forest, we have to open that up and we have to, manage for that particular species. But what you find is even if we have really defined objectives, like they want white-tailed deer or wild turkey, by managing for that species, we open it up for all different kinds of species to better their living quarters.
I am such a big fan of the fact that you brought up quail right off the bat, because we're right down the road from Seven Islands State Birding Park, which is one of my favorite places to visit because it's one of the few places you can go and hear bobwhite quail. They've managed that to be more grasslands meadow, which is one of the most imperiled type of landscapes. If correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, yeah. So our research shows we have specialists at UT that specialize in specific areas. So I'm pretty much a generalist, and I'm the first contact for the landowner. So I help, with sick tomato plants all the way to managing for wildlife species. So we have specialists at the UT that are really good at particular data entry. As far as, we have a wildlife specialist like Dr. Craig Harper who works throughout the state doing research to find out the best management practices for particular species, and we have forestry specialists. And so when you look at our landscape, I spent the majority of my career in West Tennessee. I'm a native Southern Appalachian, but I spent the first part of my career in West Tennessee, and we have a specialist that really opened my eyes. We have more forested land now than we did in the Civil War because you have all these grown-up farms. So if you don't do anything, it's going to turn into a forest. That's just our native landscape. So having that disturbance, natural disturbance and man-made disturbance to create those savannas and reduce basal area, what they call basal area, to achieve that quality habitat for our quail is a big chore, and we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, that's a kind of a neat place that I was not expecting in this conversation where our missions overlap, because we're trying to restore barn owl populations. And they hunt a lot of the same type of habitat where quail live. Quail is not a major food source for them, but it's interesting to think in terms of how the food web works, that they're kind of looking for the same sort of landscape to inhabit.
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't managed for barn owls, but I find them very, very interesting creatures. But we capture a lot of other wildlife species in our management efforts, and that's a good cause that, we have certain groups that live together. If barn owls benefit from quail, that's great, but there's also the opposite. You won't find an eastern meadowlark hanging out with a bobwhite quail because they like, grasslands, and learning that through my career and learning that through educating landowners that, some of them are very site specific that takes that. But what I remember about barred owl, growing up in southern Appalachia, there's a lot of superstition here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Don't know about that.
And my grandmother, she lived to be 89, and she was born and raised here, lived in the same holler her whole life, never drove. She was a wealth of knowledge, very tough woman. And she would always say that those were spirits. She would say that barn owl was a spirit, and she'd see them in trees, and she'd tell us growing up that that's a spirit.
Yeah, they're sometimes called ghost owls.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they are eerily silent. So you'll be out and suddenly this white phantom will appear and emerge from the grasslands. They also make a horrifying shrieking sound.
Yeah.
If you ever disturb them, they were one of my both favorite and least favorite birds to get in when I was volunteering at another rehabilitation facility. Because you could not interact with them without them letting forth this banshee wail of a sound.
Yeah. So we get calls and video through the extension office lot to ID animals, ID, disease and different things. But over the years, I've had people have recordings of those barn owls and just, they say that's a black panther screaming or another way that my mom always say it would be a haint.
Yes.
Haint.
Yeah.
It's a ghost in the southern Appalachian region. So.
Time to paint your porch ceiling blue. Keep those things away.
They're beautiful.
Barn owls just hates.
Yeah. They're beautiful creatures. One of my favorite birds is a barred owl. I like barred owls because I like to hunt and when you're in the turkey woods in the spring, you hear a lot of barred owls, and folks copy that barred owl to get these turkeys a shot gobble.
Really?
Yeah. So turkeys will hear that, and obviously, if turkeys are around a bunch of barred owls, they're not going to gobble every time they hear a barred owl.
Yeah.
But if they're on the roost, you can kind of wake them up by giving out a big barred owl call. And the most I was ever scared, I spent a lot of time in the woods, obviously, but the most I was ever scared, I was about 11 years old, and we were walking in the woods, and I'm half asleep, and you're sitting in a tree, and it's just breaking daylight, and you're nodding up and down, trying to stay awake, and you hear something right above you. Right above you.
There it is.
Makes the hair stand on the back of your neck. But yeah, I enjoy those birds, and they're almost sound like monkeys in the woods.
Yes, they do.
They really do.
Owls are great friends to farmers, from what I understand. I did some research a couple weeks ago during St. Patrick's Day that talked about how in Ireland, the farmers would actually build a window for them to go in and out of their barns because they're so good at rodent control.
Yeah, the rodent control is a big deal on farms. I haven't got any complaints from barred owls or any owls from farmers. Now, our friend, the black vulture, they get in trouble with our farmers some, but not so much the owls, and I really enjoy them. I think they're cool animals. The thought of their ears being offset, kind of,
the asymmetrical ears.
Asymmetrical ears and their ability to catch mice under snow. And another cool thing that we learned through the Wildlife Society is that, barred owls are almost an invasive species out west to their native owls. So
the spotted owl.
Yeah, something that's native here is perfectly fine here, but you take it out of its ecosystem and place it elsewhere, it can cause a lot of trouble.
And that's another cool instance of animal populations being directly linked to our practices, because a lot of what the spotted owl conservationists are facing, it has to do with the lumber industry out west. And that has directly impacted the amount of barred owls in the area that are outcompeting this native owl and kind of turning into an invasive species that needs management.
And, growing up, I heard more screech owls than I did anything. And, they're hard to see, and you don't see them a lot, but you certainly hear them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they have like a little hoarse little neigh to them. Yeah, but a little bitty owl. And in college, we would have to go on hikes and do owl counts. And one of our favorite things to do with 4-H, so the part that I'm involved in 4-H is outdoor recreation. So we do a lot of camping opportunities, and wildlife judging is going on now, where we teach our wildlife ID and vegetation management through the habitat creation. But going on owl hikes and letting them hear owl hoots and trying to identify them, and we teach them that the barred owl says who cooks for you. A great owl says who's awake, me too.
Yeah.
So getting kids out there in the outdoors and learning something pretty cool about our native wildlife.
Really, that's quite interesting, because I always thought of 4-H being like, yeah, okay, I raise chickens or I work with livestock, and I think it's amazing that you guys are taking children out and doing different things.
Yeah.
Do you see steady enrollment in 4-H still to this day, or do you see like a decline?
Absolutely. So there's not a decline, but over the years, 4-H has had to really diversify what they're doing. So a lot of people do associate 4-H with livestock judging, showing livestock, and that's certainly still a big part. Just yesterday was our regional livestock judging competition, but we've had to branch out. Now we incorporate everything. So we do wildlife. Tennessee is very successful at the wildlife habitat education program. I think Dr. Harper was telling us that Tennessee has won 11 out of the 16 national championships in that.
Wow.
It was actually created in Tennessee. So,
That's impressive.
That is amazing.
yeah, so very, very good, very sharp students in our program. We also do robotics, drones, leadership, citizenship. They get to go to 4-H Congress and actually be a mock Congress. So we have senators and representatives that go. So public speaking contests. So we really do a lot for our kids.
Yeah, y'all are really branched out.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so every county in Tennessee has a 4-H program. They have a 4-H agent dedicated to youth development. These are the 4-H agents are trained educators, and then luckily in Tennessee we're still in the schools, a lot of the counties. So in Blount County we're in the schools. I believe Sevier County still is. Most of the counties, they still go to the classroom. They conduct the speech contests, offer the judging events, and we're also in the shooting sports. So I do a lot of competitive events for 4-H, and we're doing shooting sports. We had our first shotgun practice yesterday.
Oh, that's awesome.
That gives kids avenue to get college scholarships and everything through that.
Yeah.
Do you work in archery at all?
Yeah. I'm a nationally certified archery instructor, a nationally certified rifle instructor, and state certified instructor in shotgun.
That is incredible. Like one of the here at American Eagle Foundation, we love the outdoors community. We recognize that hunting and fishing has a long legacy in conservation.
That's great.
So it's really cool talking to you and seeing how those two things are hand in hand for 4-H and fostering a passion for the outdoors in upcoming generations.
Yeah, my personal mission is to educate folks on how important it is for hunting and outdoor recreation. But according to the U.S. Wildlife Survey that's conducted by the federal agencies, 60% of conservation efforts is raised through hunters through the Pittman-Robertson excess tax on equipment, license fees. So even if you don't hunt and you enjoy wildlife and conservation, they're very important. All of us enjoy wildlife. So I work with, a diverse audience. I have hunters and I have landowners that just enjoy wildlife, and we all enjoy it. It's just on what scope you enjoy it. But we have to realize that those monies, and it's $1 million a day industry, hunting is. So, it contributes billions of dollars to the economy, and a lot of that goes into conservation efforts.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And it's something that we've always had an appreciation of because we have hunters and we have anglers on staff. But the more involved we get with the community, the more we've come to appreciate how it serves almost as a backbone to conservation, not just through funds generated, but through fostering that connection with wildlife.
So one of the things that I do, even though I used to be, I used to love to fish, But my kids kind of ruined that when they were little, the baiting of the hook and casting it out and reeling it back in. So I decided that, okay, my husband can take the kids fishing. I'll stay home where it's quiet. And now that my kids are grown and have left the house, I still go and buy my hunting and fishing license. But now it's sort of changed. My husband will sit and fish, and I'll bring a pair of grabby hands with me and a plastic bag and clean up all this stuff that I see around the waterway. So it's kind of changed for me, but I still support hunting and fishing by purchasing a license, even though I don't even use it.
But yeah, when I take my 3-year-old daughter, I don't even take a fishing pole myself.
I learned very quickly that, you don't get much fishing done when you go with 2 little ones.
Yeah, but very valuable time spent.
Absolutely. And both my children are still very avid fishermen, and my son is an avid hunter, and my husband is a hunter. And
So I'm also a proud license-carrying angler and hunter, largely small game because I'm a falconer. If I were to pick up something, it'd probably be a bow, a compound bow for hunting. But for right now, my red-tailed hawk does just fine with squirrels. And I grew up fishing on the Little Pigeon River. My uncle used to cast a line, and then I swear he would wait for something to actually be on the hook, give it some slack, and then hand it over to me to make me feel like I actually got the trout myself. And that passion kind of got reignited this past year. American Eagle Foundation went to Bassmaster and Red Crest to kind of connect with the fishing community for a upcoming conservation initiative that we'll be unveiling in the month of April. It's kind of cool to see it come full circle, not just as a family vocation, but it sounds like all of us here ended up working in fields that still continue that outdoor sport legacy.
And, we found with our kids that participate in wildlife judging that they seek careers in the wildlife profession, obviously, but, they learn skills about engineering, math, and science, or all different kinds of science. So career development is a great, avenue into this world. But, you mentioned falconry. That's really cool. A lot of people don't understand the time and the training that requires, right? You have to do an apprenticeship, all that. So
it is such a cool thing to go out with Robin. I've had the pleasure of going out with her before and help her sort of train the bird a little bit. I played a very, very small role. But
you helped.
No, it was a very small role. And it was just an amazing thing to watch the two of them partner with each other. And the bond that they had was incredible.
Yeah. That's very unique. Or I have a good friend that uses a Harris hawk.
Oh, nice.
So a little bit smaller hawk, but it's really cool to watch them, and having a friend that, to hunt with. And that's the same reason that, I have a duck dog. I enjoy working with a dog more than I do ever shooting a duck.
Oh, yes.
Having a companion out there,
In terms of kind of cycling back to conservation and its connection to land management, wildlife management, and outdoor sports, what are some concerns that you've encountered, if any, with raptors in particular?
Raptors, I deal more with raptor issues with chicken farmers.
Yes.
People who have backyard flocks. I like to tell folks to kind of hide them. I don't like shiny chicken wire. I like for them to have dark chicken wire, have some aerial cover for them, and it's also better for the chicken to make them feel more comfortable, in my opinion, not to, humanize chickens, but there is some, home remedies out there, getting some pie plates and move. But raptors are pretty smart birds. They're going to figure out that that's just something blowing in the wind. That may work temporarily, but there's no substitute for a well-built coop.
That is great information, and also very much in alignment with what we try to teach is that, it's important to protect the chickens. We understand that we get very invested, whether that's emotionally or otherwise, in our chicken coops, and we want them to thrive. but it can be challenging to protect them from wildlife that is just doing what it knows to do instinctively, which is hunting these easy targets that are out in the open.
And, those are, like I said, those raptors are pretty smart. They're not going to do something to injure themselves because, they have to make a living, and their living is eating and surviving. So they're not going to put themselves in adamant danger for a meal. They're going to have to, or they're looking to be or for the great opportunity, not to try to get hurt themselves.
Yeah, they are very much opportunistic predators. So
Yeah.
I
think most of our birds of prey are
yes,
the same way. I mean, conserve the energy and take the easy way. So
I'll never forget the time I took Jace, my falconry bird, out to your place, and there was a deer carcass, and Jace kept flying down to this deer carcass, this little male red-tailed hawk. Like,
his instincts were right on.
yeah, he was like, he saw an easy meal, and he was like, "Hey, look what I got! We're eating great tonight."
Yeah. That was much easier to catch than a squirrel.
Yes, it has. Far less energy output.
Yeah.
So they will go for what's easy and convenient. So if you make it challenging for them, then there's a high likelihood that your chickens and you will be happier as a result.
Absolutely.
Another thing I want to circle around to is you mentioned the increasing interaction between black vultures and livestock in this area.
Read my mind. Wow. I was like, let's talk about vultures.
Yeah. We do have a page on our website about protecting native vultures, but it's also important to us that we're protecting livestock and those who care for them because that's their livelihood, their passion. It's a very delicate situation.
It is. And, we have to have an imbalance, our ideal a lot with balance or human dimensions. So, when I go out to a property, a lot of times it is a farm and you can't have the best of both worlds. You can't have, 100% wildlife management practices when you also have livestock or if you're, doing row crop. But we have to find a happy medium. And then, the vultures do such an important job for us, a job that nobody else wants to do. So they do a lot of cleanup. So we have to find a way to exist. They certainly have a right to exist. But like you said, we have to do our due diligence because we have to have livestock too. We have to have, our food comes from our agriculture community, and very important that we have that balance. So again, we try to do proper management, just like with the chicken coops. We try to get our farmers to do the best management practices for their herds and everything. And so deterrence and before we go to that final route of working with an agency to handle it differently. But calving or having calves is a big issue there. So we try to get our farmers to have a defined breeding season. So we don't want to have calves just any old time of the year, which that still goes on. If you have bulls in a herd, we all know how that happens.
Yes.
So we don't want to have calves at 3:00 in the morning on a 13-degree night. So we try to have defined breeding seasons, and so we can help manage everything from a money standpoint to a health standpoint to even problems like that. So we try to have a defined breeding season.
A lot of these interactions happen when there's a newborn calf because there's something about the placenta and the blood and the vulnerability of the calf that draws these vultures in. They see an easy meal, and it is extremely traumatic for the livestock owner. So one thing we try to encourage folks to do is use those deterrents. So like motion-activated sprinklers, the pie tins. I'm glad you brought that up earlier. Black vultures are extremely neophobic. And also, if possible, providing shelter for the mother and her calf.
I've been fishing below dams and big reservoirs where they're a problem too.
Oh, yes.
And so a lot of the fishermen, when they put their boat in, they'll put plastic bags over their mirrors to keep them from landing on it because it can be messy.
Smart.
But when I was in West Tennessee, right across the Alabama line, there was a dam called Wheeler. And it was an issue there, and you go in the parking lot and there's grocery bags tied to the windows of all the cars, you know, so having to live with them.
We just had a story about that here in East Tennessee, about a poor gentleman that parked his truck at the dock and the ramp and came back to thousands of dollars worth of damage to his vehicle because they pulled off the windshield wipers, they pulled off the weather stripping off the vehicle. There's just something about that rubber that black vultures and all of their inquisitive, curious, and playful manner that tend to get a lot of tactile satisfaction from.
Yeah.
So like covering your vehicle with tarps or plastic bags is a very good way of ensuring that your vehicle is safe and you won't return to an unpleasant surprise.
You know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of or a cure, you know, so
Yeah.
it's definitely worth doing that. But, you know, visiting your place here, I've not been up close to vultures a lot, but the black vultures here, when I took a tour here, I was surprised how social they are. I mean, they come right up to their enclosure, they walk with you, they feel like they want you to be there, they'll look at you, and actually it looks like they want you to talk to them.
They do.
Very social. I did not know that, and there's a big difference when you walk up to the turkey vulture one here, and I don't know if it's just personalities, but your black vultures definitely have personality.
Absolutely.
Yes.
They're so curious, and I think that's what gets them in trouble is that
That is.
curiosity.
They're so intelligent and so curious. We have a black vulture that has her own Instagram page. Her name's Bash. I had the privilege of being one of Bash's friends for a very long time, but she loved romping around with paper balls. She would go after shoelaces. She loved rubber, like most of her black vulture can. And it was a wonderful educational opportunity whenever I was able to share her immense personality with our community, because a lot of people don't think about black vultures being incredibly social and having such strong family bonds. They have forged such a positive relationship with their handlers that it really causes their charismatic personalities to come across. They have a fantastic memory for things too, which is part of what leads them to getting in trouble as well. They have these loafing sites, you used that word earlier, like an entire social network of loafing sites where these flocks will convene, exchange information. If they find a food source and return to a loafing site and see that one of their social members has not eaten, they'll actually lead one another to food. So they're really incredible birds that do a great service for our ecosystems, but I often say that they're intelligent enough to consistently get in trouble, and that's the case with these boat ramps and livestock issues that we see on the rise. Purdue University is doing some fantastic research on learning more about how these livestock depredations occur with black vultures. They actually are supporting farmers in a very tangible way by providing necropsies to newborn calves and trying to better understand the conditions that lead up to these incidents so we can find a solution that serves both the cows and their caretakers and the vultures.
That's great. Yep. Our Purdue's the land grant University of Indiana.
Oh,
So we work with Purdue some.
that's amazing. It's good to know. They're doing fantastic work over there. I know one thing we're looking forward to doing is partnering with 4-H and you for educational outreach.
Yeah. So y'all have a beautiful facility here. I hope a lot of folks come check it out, and I could see us doing a lot of things together. You know, we do the wildlife judging right now where they have to learn ecosystems. And so we're in the eastern deciduous ecoregion. And so Tennessee learns 3 different ecoregions: the eastern deciduous, the coastal pine, or the central pine area that's around the coast and dips up into West Tennessee, and then the urban and wetland. And so some of the birds that you rehabilitate here are on our list. So we teach kids how to or identify wildlife on their calls, their feathers, their furs, their skulls, their scats, and their tracks.
That's so cool.
And then, that's awesome. And then we teach them, you know, the biology of that animal, what it takes to have that animal on a landscape. And so that's part of the contest. And then the second part is they go to a property and they get a description of this property, and they're given 3 wildlife species. So they get to play a wildlife manager for a day. and they have to make recommendations on how to make that property better for those wildlife species. In the last part of that, they write a wildlife management plan. They have to explain why they chose the management practices that they chose. So if they go and say that they need to make a timber harvest or do a certain cut on the trees, they have to explain why they've done that. If it's to improve new growth of mass producing trees, or if they have to do a prescribed fire while they've done that to set back succession, or that juxtaposition, as we say, the plants interact while they've done that.
That is amazing. And what invaluable skills to teach these kids.
Absolutely, because we're all part of the landscape, part of the ecosystem. So how we manage that wildlife, and it all goes back to conservation. There's two ways to look at it: preservation and versus conservation. And there's romantic ideas of both, but conservation is where we have to manage the landscape for the betterment of these wildlife species.
Yeah, and I often like to say that conservation starts in our own backyards, regardless of whether or not we realize it, because chances are we're sharing space with raptors, with the songbirds, whether we have 1,800 acres or less than an acre of land. There's things that we can do in our own backyard to better manage the land and keep those invasive species out for native wildlife.
And it's a great way to see the fruits of your labor. If you do something, it's going to be a response. Doing nothing is doing something on the landscape. So if you do nothing, you're still going to get a response, and it's probably not the response that you're not going to want.
Are you planning on bringing some of the 4-H students here?
Yeah. So you all are hosting a conservation fest. Is that?
That's correct. It's this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, so April the 6th, we look to have a booth, an educational booth that talks about UT Extension and 4-H, and then you can come find out more of what it's about. We just scratched the surface today, but we do everything from livestock to wildlife and fisheries and robotics. So there's something for everybody, and then we'll tell you how you can be involved, even if you don't live in Sevier or Blount County. There's a county program that you can be involved in, and the fun thing is it's led by volunteers. So if you have a passion, if you're an adult and you really love wildlife, or you have a particular passion that you want to pass on to future generations, you can volunteer with 4-H and share that pastime with our youth.
So let's just say somebody wants to find out if Ohio has an extension type program. What would they Google?
Yeah.
How would they go about looking for that?
Yeah. So if you'll type in, if you have a question, if you Google, what's the best varieties of vegetables or best variety of tomatoes, and you put in extension after it, it'll pull up extension services, and it'll be publications from a lot of different land grants. But if you're asking specifically of the state that you're in, you can just look up land grant institution of your state, and it's going to give you probably at least two. There's a land grant system that was in the 1800s, like the University of Tennessee, and then there's I think it's an 1890 institution where it's at one time it was a minority focused land grant institution, and they work very well together. So our partner is Tennessee State University. So if you live in Ohio, if you type in land grant of the state of Ohio, it's going to come back and it's going to say Ohio State University. So they'll give you resources there, and like I said, it's so diverse. Whether you're trying to grow Bermuda grass in your lawn, or if you're learning what you need to do on the landscape to attract more songbirds to your property, you can find anything in between.
One thing I'm really fond of that the extension in Tennessee is responsible for is the Tennessee Smart Yards Initiative. I'm working towards getting my Smart Yard certification. So I think that there's something there regardless of the scale you're operating on for everyone.
What's the Smart Yard?
Yeah, what does it do?
So Smart Yard is a program that's dedicated to better management of your landscape, like ornamentally. So I'm sure it probably focuses on native plants, growing native plants, and it's kind of a beautification system, utilizing rain gardens and things like that play into each other. So instead of growing just non-native cool season grasses. If you want to attract butterflies, pollinators, and wildlife around your home, that would be a program that's probably for you. One of our biggest volunteer organizations in the state is the Master Gardeners. So me working in horticulture in Blount County, I help Master Gardeners in their endeavors. So each year we do a Master Gardener internship course where we train adults. Basically, it's a short course, college course on horticulture. So we get a group of 20, 25 adults that want to volunteer, and we teach them probably all we can cram in a span of a couple months, and they go out and teach the community. And they also do community service is a big part of it. They have to give back a certain amount of hours of volunteerism. So they go out and they do community gardens, they do community beautification. So our Master Gardeners in Blount County have several programs going on. They'll do gardens at the public library, do vegetable gardens, and a lot of good work. And so we get a lot of calls at Extension Office that Master Gardeners can handle that, the agents don't have to, if it's a question about a certain plant disease. And there's many Master Gardeners that know more about it than I do. I have to, I have my hats of many different styles, but, so they help us out tremendously, helping the public.
Ronnie, you are an absolute wealth of knowledge. You have your own podcast, to my understanding. So
yeah. So we do a podcast once a month, at least once a month, maybe twice. But we have a podcast that I host called Appalachia At Ya.
Best name ever.
Now, this is not associated with and that's not associated with UT Extension, right? This is just Ronnie Cowan.
No, it's it's using my work, so it has the UT logo on everything. I use it part of my thing, but Appalachia At Ya, it's a monthly podcast, and we focus on outdoor recreation and getting involved in the outdoors. And so I have guests like other wildlife biologists and a specialist from UT and people who actually recreate in the outdoors come on, and we talk about various topics. And since I do horticulture, I do a hobby farming update, and we focus on invasive species of the month that we try to educate people on how to get rid of in current events.
So is it okay if we put the link in?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure.
What's one of the things that just a regular person can do in their own backyard to help the environment?
Mm-hmm. Well, controlling non-native invasive species is such a noble cause. So knowing what's on your property is probably what we teach first. So how to identify what trees are on your property, what kind of grass you have, or identifying what's out there will tell you a lot about your soil and a lot about the environment that you've bought a home in or that you recreate in. So pretty much just basic dendrology or plant ID, knowing what's out there, and we make site visits to help folks with that. Fighting those non-native invasive species, getting them out so they don't spread and across the landscape and choke out our native, more beneficial plants would be the first step.
Like service berries instead of Bradford pears any day.
Yeah. And then, probably depending on what you're wanting to do, a great start is having your soil tested. So whether you're growing a lawn, growing garden, growing fruit trees, it's always best to start with a soil test. And that's a lot of what our office does. We have soil testing kits that we give you. We'll tell you how to take samples, and then they'll test your soil for macronutrients, your nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. We'll give you a reading on your micronutrients like magnesium and calcium, and we'll give you a recommendation on how to fertilize your soil based on the specific crop that you select. So the more specific, the better. If you're growing vegetables, we're going to test it for growing specific vegetables. If you want to grow fruit trees, we're going to test it for the best growing medium for fruit trees, or grasses, or whatever. And it's going to give you a pH reading.
Do you guys do you come out and do site visits free of charge?
Yeah. So a lot of our stuff is free of charge. You know, there is some charge for like courses like Master Gardener where there's a lot of material that you get and things. But if you have an issue, like if you're wanting if you have questions about managing your landscape, growing vegetables, any family consumer science. I mean, even budgeting finances. We do site visits. You can contact us. Some of it doesn't warrant a visit, but if we need to, we can make site visits, come out and look at the problem or look at your landscape, give you recommendations and provide you information. If you need a service, like if you need someone to come cut trees, we don't really recommend any particular company, but we can tell you what practices might need to be done. So you can find your county extension office. If you just look up University of Tennessee Extension, there's a interactive map. You can click on the county that you live in. It'll tell you where the office is at and contact information and their agents like myself. So in Blount County, I do horticulture and natural resources. We have John Wilson that does traditional ag. We have Mary Beth that does family consumer science, and James and Amy does 4-H. So we have a big office, but there's at least a county agent that can help you out with your problem in all 95 counties of the state.
Which is no small thing whatsoever. What an amazing resource.
Yeah. I'm impressed.
Yes, I am too. I always find myself geeking out whenever I have an opportunity to interact with anyone from the UT Extension, and you are no exception. Thank you so much for your time. We always like to close out these episodes by sharing a favorite bird fact.
Okay.
So I will open this up to any bird, even beyond raptors, because I don't want to limit your amazing knowledge.
Well, I told you my favorite bird is an owl, but there's just so much diversity out there in the bird world. But I think we often forget about, as a hunter, I often forget about some of the songbirds and everything, but one of the cool little birds that a lot of people don't realize is out there is an oven bird. So it has a cool little mohawk looking stripe that's on top, but their little house looks like an oven.
Oh,
so it's a mid-story bird that is a little bit difficult to manage because it has a very specific role, but just take this platform to recognize one that some of y'all may have never heard of, and just a little dinky bird.
Everybody's got their phones out now. Everybody's Googling.
yeah. Look up the oven bird. Appreciate this little bird. And I guess my bird fact for this episode would be going back to our barn owls, since we spoke about them. It's theorized that their bright feathers allow them to blind their prey, especially on full moon nights.
What's cool about owls too is their perforated feathers. They're silent.
Yes.
It's pretty, or like a.
You stole my bird fact.
I'm sorry.
I got another one though.
Okay.
My favorite bird fact is there are over 500 species of birds of prey.
That's incredible.
Really?
500.
All shapes and sizes too.
Yes.
That's all for this episode. I hope you will check out Appalachia Atcha if any of this information resonated with you, and I'm sure it did. I've been geeking out this entire time. Thank you so much for listening, and tune in a couple of weeks for our next episode.